Hi there, I'm Steve Bowden. Some of you may know me as a startup advisor here at Newcastle University. But in addition to that, for nearly 30 years, I have been in the film business. I've run 2 independent production companies and I've been responsible for over 50 audiovisual projects, including feature films and short films. I'm a graduate of European Audiovisual Entrepreneurs, and I've worked as a mentor, a film specialist, and a senior lecturer. And for the majority of my career, I have been a film producer. Now, I may not look like what you might imagine a film producer to look like, although at times I have tried. But seriously, it seems that most people have in their head an idea of what a producer looks like and maybe some inkling about what they do. But very few people seem to know what the role of a producer actually entails. So the aim of this video is to shed a little light on the role of a producer, and in doing so, talk a little bit about what goes into making a feature film. And afterwards, I'm going to invite you to ask questions about any aspect of my job or my career, or indeed anything relating to the feature film process. So before making this video, I asked some of my colleagues who are not in the film industry what they thought a film producer does. Here are some of their responses, which are pretty accurate but lacking a little bit of detail. So they think a producer finances the film. Well, a producer, yes, is responsible for raising the finance, but not for financing the film wholly out of his own pocket. Although we often take risks with our own money, especially in the early stages of development. Finds the crew, pretty accurate. We certainly spend a lot of time looking at CVs and show reels in order to establish who our heads of department are. Planning and organising the film, yes, with the assistance of a good production team. Promotes the film, well, that's somewhat accurate, but probably at a much earlier stage than people would imagine. And someone said, producers go to the Cannes Film Festival and drink cocktails on the beach. Well, representing the film in places like that across the world is certainly one of the nicer aspects of the job, but selling the film at festivals and attending markets in order to help finance the film is probably the most stressful part of the job. But yes, we do go to Cannes. In a moment, we'll take these suggestions and plot them against 3 key stages of the feature film process. By that, I mean development, production, and exploitation. For those of you who don't know, development is the stage which leads up to the actual production of the film. So, for example, writing the screenplay, financing the film, casting the film. Then we have the production phase. This is probably the stage that most people associate with filmmaking. This is actually where we shoot the film. But it also incorporates pre-production, the planning, choosing locations, building sets, etc. And post-production, which is where the edit takes place and the recording of the music and mixing the soundtrack. The production phase also happens to be the shortest phase. So whereas from concept through to exploitation might take up to 5 years, the production phase on a small independent movie might be as little as 5 months. Exploitation is the phase that we're probably all the most aware of, because that's the point where we consume the final product, either in the cinema or on a streaming service like Netflix or Amazon or Sky, etc. So now let's take these suggestions and add a few more to the list. So in addition to hiring the key members of the crew, the producer also hires the writer and works with the writer to turn the idea into a screenplay. Often a writer will approach a producer with a concept, and then the producer will go about raising some development money in order to commission the writer to write the screenplay. Or a producer can come up with a concept and approach a writer and commission them that way. Casting and contracting the actors. Producers begin thinking about which actors would be best for the film and who might attract an audience based on previous productions and research into the market at a very early stage. Hiring and collaborating with the director on the overall vision for the film, making a choice on who would be the best director from an artistic and commercial perspective, Throughout this stage, the producer will be trying to raise money from investors via tax incentives and pre-selling the movie before it's made. The producer is also responsible for the budget and the production schedule and making sure that everything comes in on time and on budget. A producer will work with an editor and watch rough assemblies of the sequences of the film throughout the shooting period. This is in order to see that the film's delivering on the vision that everybody's had for the film, but also to see whether there are any scenes which might need to be reshot while we're still filming. The producer selects the composer and sometimes work with a music supervisor to license the music for the film. And then managing the production and delivering the final film and the additional materials to the distributor so that the film can be shown in cinemas across the world or on digital platforms and television. So the role of a producer covers the A to Z of film production, covers all of the key stages and all aspects and things that go into making a feature film. A producer doesn't need to know how to write, but he needs to know what good narrative structure is and how to work with a writer. A producer doesn't need to know how to operate a camera, but he needs to know how much time to allow a cinematographer to shoot a scene. So rather than thinking of a producer like this, maybe think of a producer like this. A producer is like the conductor of an orchestra. He doesn't need to know how to play every instrument, but he needs to know how every instrument should sound, and it's his job to bring them all together in order to create that memorable performance. Now, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I'm a startup advisor here at Newcastle University, which means I work with entrepreneurial students and graduates every day, people who want to take an idea and turn it into a new product or service or a business. Now, I've been in the business of making films for nearly 30 years, but some of you might be thinking, well, what does that have to do with entrepreneurship and startup? So let's think about the key aspects of being a producer, some of those which I've just described, and then look at what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur is trying to turn an idea or a concept into a product or a service. They're going to conduct some market research in order to do that, in order to understand what people want. They're going to put a team together in order to help them achieve their vision. And then they're going to work with people and organizations that enable them to get their product in front of customers, or in other words, an audience. And they're going to have to rely on their passion, their optimism, and take some risks in order to do this. Orson Welles said filmmaking is 2% movie making and 98% hustling. Now, Orson Welles was not only a brilliant filmmaker, he was also one of the great entrepreneurs. And I think what he meant was getting something onto the screen is less about the craft of filmmaking and more about being entrepreneurial. So I'd like to encourage all of you aspiring filmmakers, but especially those of you who are considering the role of a producer, to embrace that inner entrepreneur and think less about the craft of filmmaking and more about how you're going to get that film made. Don't forget to subscribe to the Newcastle University Careers Service YouTube channel, like and ask any questions in the comments below. And you can head over to NCL Careers on Instagram, where I'm going to be doing a Q&A story as part of Creative Careers 2021. So I'll see you there.